Hey man, sometimes the most powerful thing you can ever say to a woman is nothing at all. Silence has a way of cutting through illusions that words could never reach. You can talk for hours, explain your truth, pour your soul into sentences, and still not be heard because she doesn't listen to logic. She listens to energy, and silence is pure energy. It doesn't get twisted, misinterpreted, or ignored. It lingers. It forces her to feel instead of think. When you go quiet, she's no longer reacting to what you're saying. She's reacting to what she's lost. Your words once gave her comfort, control, reassurance. Your silence removes all of that. It creates a space she can't fill with excuses or distractions. It turns your absence into presence, a presence that echoes in her thoughts far louder than any argument ever could. When you stop speaking, she begins to hear herself, and that's what truly unsettles her, because words gave her a way to avoid reflection. Every conversation, every debate, every emotional tug-of-war was a form of noise that kept her from facing her own accountability. But silence doesn't give her that escape. It's a mirror she can't look away from. Suddenly, all the things you tried to communicate before, your frustration, your exhaustion, your disappointment, they start to make sense to her. Not through explanation, but through experience. She starts feeling what you felt, the emptiness, the confusion, the weight of giving more than you received. Your silence becomes the teacher she never knew she needed, because while your words spoke to her mind, your silence speaks to her soul, and souls don't forget that kind of lesson. The first thing she'll feel when you go silent is control slipping away. She's used to being able to reach you, to know exactly how to pull a reaction, to feel your emotions dance around hers, but silence severs that string. It removes her access. It tells her, without saying a word, that she no longer has influence over your peace, and that realization lands heavier than anger ever could, because she can handle your frustration. That still keeps her relevant, but your silence, that tells her she's no longer in your world. It's not punishment, it's presence with boundaries. It's you finally choosing peace over persuasion. She won't admit it, but your quiet sends her mind into overdrive. Did he stop caring? Did I go too far? Is he really done? Every question becomes an echo inside her head, and those echoes hurt more than any speech you could have given. Silence has a texture to it, a thickness that fills the air between two people. She can feel it even when you're not in the room. It's in the way her phone stays quiet when she expects your message. It's in the way your name doesn't appear in her notifications anymore. It's in the calm she once complained about, now turning into a void she can't escape. And what she feels most isn't rejection, it's reflection. For the first time, she's realizing what she truly lost wasn't attention, but access to calm. You were the steady rhythm that balanced her chaos. You were the quiet center of her storm. And now that you've withdrawn, her world feels unanchored. That's the power of silence. It makes your absence feel louder than any presence she's ever known. At first, she'll try to fill that silence. She'll talk louder, reach out subtly, throw bait into the air to see if you'll respond. Maybe a random text, maybe a post meant for you to notice, maybe a casual attempt to rekindle conversation. But your quiet has a different weight now. It doesn't move, and that immovability becomes magnetic, because deep down she respects what she can't control. She might resent it at first, but slowly, she begins to feel the difference between attention and presence. She realizes that your silence isn't passive, it's intentional. You're not ignoring her, you're honoring yourself. That distinction hits harder than she expected, because silence doesn't just say, "I'm done talking." It says, "I've finally learned what's worth my peace." And nothing confuses a woman more than a man who's calm after she's done everything to disrupt it. As the silence stretches, her imagination takes over. It starts small, wondering if you're okay, wondering if you've moved on, but eventually it turns into something deeper. She starts wondering if you've outgrown her. That thought unsettles her more than anything, because she knows deep down that the version of you she knew needed her validation, her attention, her affection. But the man you are now, he's different. He's silent because he doesn't need noise to feel alive. He's calm because he's learned that chaos isn't love. He's distant because he's found peace somewhere she can't reach. And that realization, brother, is what makes her miss you, not because of nostalgia, but because she feels your growth. Silence doesn't just remove your presence, it amplifies your evolution. In that silence, she'll begin to remember the small things she once dismissed. The way you used to listen without interrupting, the way your tone stayed level even when she was emotional, the way you always kept your word. All the things that felt boring or predictable before now feel sacred. She realizes that peace was never dull, it was safe, and safety, once lost, becomes priceless. She'll miss the conversations that weren't about drama, the nights that weren't about tension, the way your presence used to ground her. It's only in silence that appreciation blooms, because when noise is gone, truth becomes audible, and that truth whispers a simple, haunting reality. She didn't just lose a man, she lost emotional gravity. Silence has this way of aging everything. It matures emotions, ripens guilt, deepens awareness. As the days pass, what she feels isn't anger anymore, it's accountability. She starts seeing how her words once cut, how her tone once pushed you away, how your patience was mistaken for passivity. The silence gives her space to replay the moments she tried to win arguments instead of understanding them. And that's when she realizes, you never stopped communicating, you just changed languages. You switched from words to absence, from noise to peace. And in that new language, she finally understands what you were trying to teach all along. Love without respect is noise. And she can hear that now, clear as day, in the space your silence created. You'll notice the shift too. The peace you once had to fight for now feels natural. You're not forcing yourself to stay quiet anymore. You're simply uninterested in unnecessary noise. Silence doesn't feel like control. It feels like clarity. It's not about ignoring her. It's about choosing yourself. You begin to realize that not everyone deserves access to your words, because words are energy, and energy is currency. You've spent enough of it trying to explain what peace should look like. Now you're living it. And that's what separates men who chase validation from men who command respect. When you master silence, you stop reacting to emotion and start responding to truth. That shift doesn't just change how she sees you, it changes how you see yourself. And that's the part she feels most of all, the change in your presence. You're not cold, you're clear, you're not distant, you're directed, you're not punishing, you're protecting. And that subtle difference changes everything. Because for the first time, your energy doesn't orbit her, it stands on its own. That's what silence gives you, sovereignty. You're no longer defined by how much attention you give or how much affection you receive. You're defined by your stillness. That stillness doesn't just speak, it teaches, it shows her, and everyone else that peace is power. Because when a man can stay silent in the face of noise, he becomes unforgettable. Not because he said the right thing, but because he finally said nothing at all. The longer that silence lingers, the more it begins to change shape. At first it's something she notices only in passing. A few quiet evenings that feel off, a missing voice on her phone. Then it starts to take up space. It's in the stillness when she wakes and reaches for her phone, only to find the same blank screen. It's in the way her thoughts circle back to what she said, what she didn't say. She feels the weight of all the moments when words came out too fast and understanding came too slow. Silence works that way. It turns time itself into a mirror. It lets every unspoken truth, every careless word, replay until she can no longer hide behind excuses. What once felt like distance now feels like depth, and in that depth, she begins to sense how much meaning lives inside the quiet you left behind. She'll try to fill that quiet, at first with noise, music, conversations, distractions, but none of it satisfies, because noise can't replace presence, it only reminds her of what's missing. She'll scroll through social feeds and realize that every loud thing feels hollow. She'll listen to people talk and wonder why none of them say anything that matters. That's what silence does. It raises the standard. It teaches the heart to crave substance over sound. Your absence has turned her attention inward. Now the things she once overlooked, the steadiness of your breathing, the patience in your tone, the calm way you handle tension, become the details she replays. She starts to understand that the peace you carried wasn't empty, it was full of awareness. And that awareness is what her noise can't touch. Silence also exposes the difference between attention and connection. When you spoke, she could respond. When you fell silent, she had to reflect. And reflection is far more intimate than conversation. Words can hide things, intentions, fears, pride. Silence strips all that away. It leaves only what's real. She begins to see how much of your communication was love, disguised as patience. How often your quiet was understanding, not withdrawal. In your absence, she finally hears what your restraint was saying all along. That love without listening isn't love at all. And she feels the sting of that realization. Because there's no argument left to win, no noise left to drown it out. All that's left is the echo of what could have been understood if she had paused sooner. You, on the other hand, start to feel something new growing inside that silence. Clarity. At first it's uncomfortable, but slowly it becomes light. You begin to hear your own thoughts again, unfiltered by reaction. The things that used to provoke you now barely register. You see the pattern clearly. How often emotion demanded a reply, how rarely truth required one. You start to move through your days without carrying other people's chaos. That quiet discipline shapes you into someone calmer, steadier, harder to provoke. You start choosing when to speak, and when you do, your words land heavier because they're rare. That's what silence does. It gives your voice gravity, and that gravity is what she feels, even when you say nothing. There's a point where she stops trying to fill the silence and begins to listen to it. That's when understanding dawns. She starts to see that you weren't avoiding her, you were protecting the space between you from more harm. She realizes that the silence wasn't punishment, it was mercy. Because if you had kept talking, if you had matched her noise with noise, the bond would have broken under the weight of misunderstanding. But by going quiet, you gave both of you a chance to see the truth. That kind of realization is humbling. It makes her quieter too. Her messages become fewer, her tone softer. Without you saying a word, she starts to match your energy. Silence, in its own strange way, has begun to rebuild what words once destroyed. The quiet also brings back memory, not in sharp bursts, but as soft reminders. She'll remember the way your hand moved when you explained something, the stillness in your eyes when you listened. She'll realize that those moments were her calm, even when she didn't notice it. Every bit of noise she surrounded herself with since has only made that calm stand out more. And while she might never admit it, she misses the version of herself that existed in your quiet presence. Because in that space, she wasn't performing, she was simply being. Your silence doesn't just make her miss you, it makes her miss who she was when she felt safe near you. That's the quiet kind of missing that lingers for years, because it isn't about romance, it's about peace. For you, the silence becomes something sacred. You start to understand why the wise rarely speak much. It's not detachment, it's discernment. You realize that peace can't coexist with constant explanation. The moment you stop trying to make others see your perspective, you begin to see it yourself. That's the paradox of silence. It clarifies you by isolating you. It teaches you to sit with your own company until it feels complete. You stop craving closure, stop rehearsing what you'd say if you could. You realize you don't need to win, you just need to remain whole, and wholeness, you learn, doesn't shout, it simply exists. That's the lesson words could never give you. They could express, but they could not restore. Silence did both. She begins to sense that restoration in you when she sees you again. There's something different about your energy, lighter but grounded. You smile easily now, not because you've forgotten, but because you've forgiven. The man who once explained himself into exhaustion now simply observes. She can feel that you're no longer reachable through the old pathways. Her words bounce off your calm like pebbles against glass. It's not coldness, it's completion. You've outgrown the need to respond. You stand there, polite but detached, and she realizes that you've learned something she hasn't yet mastered, peace that doesn't depend on anyone's reaction. And that realization leaves her silent too. For the first time, she understands what your quiet actually feels like from the outside. After that, she'll begin to look for silence elsewhere. She'll crave it in her next conversations, her next relationships, even in her own thoughts. But silence born from avoidance never feels like yours. Yours carried intention, hers carries absence, and that difference will keep reminding her that true stillness can't be imitated. It comes from understanding, not from emptiness. She'll start reading more, sitting longer, listening to herself. She may even start to change because once silence teaches you something, you can't unlearn it. It rewires you. It shows you where noise was hiding pain. It gives you back the power to pause, and in those pauses, she'll begin to grow. In that way, your silence will keep teaching long after you stop thinking about it. For you, that's the quiet reward. You don't need to see her learn the lesson, you just needed to learn yours. You understand now that peace is not a strategy, it's a state. It's not something you perform to get a reaction, it's what you become when reactions no longer rule you. Your silence has stopped being about her, it's about alignment with yourself. Every time you choose not to explain, you reinforce that alignment. Every time you choose calm over conflict, you protect it, and that quiet consistency starts shaping your entire life. People trust you more, opportunities flow easier, your world gets clearer, because silence, when it's real, doesn't just make her feel, it rebuilds you, and that's something words could never do. As more time passes, the silence becomes a language between both of you, unspoken, yet understood. She knows now that she can't draw you into the old rhythm of reaction. The conversations she replays in her mind sound different. Where she once heard confrontation, she now hears care. Where she once felt pressure, she now senses patience. It dawns on her that every quiet moment that frustrated her was you giving space for understanding. Only now, in the echo of that quiet, can she finally appreciate it. Silence has a strange way of translating things backwards in time. It takes everything you said before, everything she dismissed, and gives it new meaning. You haven't changed the words, you've just changed the frame. And that new frame shows her the truth. You weren't distant, you were disciplined. The discipline in that stillness is what reshapes you. You begin to notice how rarely you actually need to explain yourself to anyone. People who understand you don't require speeches, they read your intent through your calm. People who don't, no amount of talking can convince. That realization simplifies everything. You stop trying to fix perceptions and start living in integrity. Silence becomes a boundary that filters out the unnecessary. It protects your energy from being drained by misunderstanding. And the quieter you become, the louder your life feels. The world around you slows down enough for you to see patterns. Who brings chaos? Who brings peace? What drains you? What restores you? Silence, you realize, is not empty. It's full of data. It's wisdom disguised as quiet. Meanwhile, she's wrestling with her own inner noise. The emotions she once used to mask discomfort, pride, distraction, defiance, start losing their effect. The quiet stretches too long to ignore. She begins to feel something she rarely allowed herself to before. Regret. Not because of the outcome, but because of the realization that she misread you. That what she took for indifference was actually restraint. That what she saw as distance was self-control. Regret grows slowly in silence. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It speaks to her in the late hours, when the world's noise fades and memory takes its place. And every whisper sounds the same. He was calm when I was chaotic. He listened when I accused. He stood firm when I tested. Those whispers keep her awake longer than arguments ever did. You notice how silence starts affecting more than relationships. It begins shaping your perception of the world, the way people rush to fill every pause, to prove their worth through endless words. You see it now as insecurity in disguise. You start appreciating the rare moments of stillness in everything, the quiet before sunrise, the hush that follows rain, the pause between breaths. You see that life itself moves in rhythm with silence. It's not just absence, it's structure. You begin to understand why some of the wisest men spoke little, because truth doesn't need decoration. In this new awareness, you start speaking less, but living more. The power that used to leak out through explanation now channels into creation. You're building, not arguing. You're moving, not convincing. For her, the quiet becomes a teacher that refuses to leave. It follows her through conversations, through moments when she tries to laugh off what happened. Silence has memory, and it brings back pieces of you in flashes. The steadiness of your gaze, the way you never raised your voice, the certainty in your tone when you said you needed peace. Those memories sting, not because they hurt, but because they humble. They show her what maturity actually looks like. She realizes that strength isn't loud, it's patient, and she starts to crave that patience again, not for romance, but for balance. She begins to look for men who remind her of that energy, but few do, because what she's really looking for isn't a person, it's the peace she once felt in your quiet company. You, on the other hand, have already outgrown the idea of needing to be understood by her or anyone. The silence has taught you that understanding yourself is enough. You don't need closure when you have clarity. You don't need apology when you have acceptance. That's the freedom you earn when you stop talking to be heard and start listening to your intuition. You stop negotiating your worth in conversations that drain you. You stop responding to confusion with explanation. Silence becomes your declaration, a steady, unwavering statement that you've outgrown emotional debt. And in that calm, something sacred returns to you. Your time, your focus, your creative drive. You begin to realize that peace isn't something people give you, it's something you guard with every quiet choice. The more you stay centered in that silence, the more magnetic you become. People start noticing something different about you, though they can't explain it. It's not charm or arrogance, it's groundedness. You speak less but mean more. You smile less but feel deeper. You carry a kind of unspoken authority that can't be taught. It's earned through discipline, and that's the paradox of silence. When you stop trying to impress, you become impressive. When you stop chasing validation, you attract respect. Your calm presence exposes the chaos in others, and that contrast makes them adjust around you. Even she feels it when she sees you again, the quiet confidence that doesn't need to prove anything. That's when she realizes silence didn't diminish you, it refined you. There comes a day when she finally understands that your silence wasn't rejection, it was reflection. It gave her the space to see herself as she truly was, not as she pretended to be. And that realization is painful, but it's also the start of her growth, because only silence can reveal what noise hides. It showed her where she overreacted, where she ignored empathy, where she mistook control for connection. And once seen, those truths can't be unseen. She may never tell you, but she'll carry a new respect for you because of it. You didn't lecture her into change, you led her there through stillness. And that's a lesson she'll carry far beyond you, into every future relationship, into every emotional storm. By now you've come to understand something essential. Silence isn't just a reaction to conflict, it's a foundation for power. It's where your clarity lives, where your intuition sharpens. It's the difference between responding and reacting, between leadership and chaos. You start to see that the world tries to drown men in noise, so they forget how to listen to themselves. But when you rediscover silence, you rediscover strength. You stop getting pulled into emotional traps because you no longer mistake urgency for importance. You've learned to pause before every decision, to breathe before every response. And in that pause, you find mastery over yourself, over your emotions, over your reality. That's what makes silence sacred. It's where men reclaim their power. Eventually, even she will find peace in the quiet you left behind. Not immediately, not easily, but inevitably. Because silence always completes its lesson. It begins with confusion, passes through regret, and ends with understanding. And in that understanding, both of you grow, just in different directions. You don't need her to return for closure. Her evolution is proof that your silence mattered. You spoke once through patience, again through distance, and finally through stillness. And that stillness changed you both. You walk away lighter, wiser, unbothered. She walks away quieter, thoughtful, awakened. That's what silence does. It ends one story while beginning another, not with noise, but with peace. Over time, that quiet begins to settle into her like a slow dawn. It no longer feels like absence, it feels like atmosphere. She notices it when she's with other people, when laughter sounds too loud or conversations feel forced. She senses the difference between your silence and everyone else's noise. The calm that once unnerved her now becomes her measure for peace. It's in that realization that she understands how rare you were. Most men fill silence with noise because they're afraid of being forgotten. You, however, let silence speak for you because you trusted its honesty. That trust is what makes her remember you. Not the words, not the memories, but the quiet certainty of your presence. She might never say it out loud, but she'll measure every man who follows against that standard of stillness. Meanwhile, you begin to experience a kind of spiritual clarity that only silence can bring. You start to recognize how much of life's noise is self-created, how many of your old reactions were habits, not truths. You begin to appreciate how space itself can heal. You don't rush to fill time or conversation. You let things breathe. You realize that every pause has purpose, that wisdom comes not from knowing more, but from needing less. This new calm becomes your default state, and it changes how the world responds to you. Opportunities arrive more naturally. People confide in you more easily. You've become a sanctuary in a culture of constant stimulation, and it's not something you perform, it's simply who you've become. A man who learned that the absence of noise is not emptiness, but equilibrium. For her, the silence eventually stops being about you and becomes about her own growth. It starts transforming from punishment into perspective. She begins to see how much of her identity was built around reaction, around the validation she got from being heard, admired, pursued. But now the space where your voice used to be forces her to hear her own. And that's the most painful yet liberating shift of all. She learns to sit in stillness without needing to provoke emotion from someone else. She begins to rebuild her sense of worth from the inside out. Your silence in that way becomes a bridge to her self-awareness. It doesn't just make her miss you, it teaches her to meet herself. That's how powerful your restraint truly was. It transformed absence into evolution. There comes a day when you look back and realize that silence has done something words never could. It has purified your perception of love. You no longer equate intensity with connection. You understand that the loudest emotions often burn out the fastest. You now look for stillness in others, the kind that doesn't demand, doesn't compete, doesn't drain. You crave the kind of peace that doesn't need proof. That change in your standard shifts everything. You stop repeating old cycles because silence has given you discernment. You can now tell the difference between chemistry and compatibility, between temporary thrill and long-term alignment. The quiet sharpened your intuition, and that intuition will guard your heart far better than any speech ever could. As months pass, she still finds herself thinking about the way you didn't react. The world tells her that indifference is cold, but what she felt from you was something else entirely: dignity. You didn't shout, you didn't chase, you simply stopped giving energy to what no longer matched yours. That composure remains burned into her memory because it made her confront something she'd never faced before: the limits of her power. Silence humbled her in ways arguments never could. It showed her that influence without respect is fragile. She'll carry that lesson into every connection that comes after. She might even catch herself mid-conversation, hearing your old calm echoing inside her head. That's when she'll realize that your silence didn't just end the relationship, it evolved her standards. For you, that same silence becomes your compass in every new encounter. You measure people not by what they say, but by how they handle quiet. You notice who grows restless when there's nothing to prove. You watch how easily some people fill pauses with flattery or defensiveness, and you know instantly they're still ruled by noise. The ones who can sit comfortably in silence, who don't need constant reassurance or validation, those are your people now. You've become fluent in the language of stillness. You know that truth is never rushed and peace never shouts. Silence has turned you into someone who no longer looks for love through words, but through energy. You listen to tone, to consistency, to action, and in that awareness, you've become impossible to deceive. She'll still have moments when she almost reaches out. Maybe she drafts a message. Maybe she revisits an old picture. Maybe she replays a memory that makes her chest tighten. But then she remembers your calm. She remembers how final that silence felt, not as punishment, but as peace. And something inside her stops her from disturbing it. Because even she knows, on a deeper level, that silence, that pure, should never be broken. It represents closure, but also something sacred. She doesn't want to ruin what's already been healed. So instead of contacting you, she keeps the lesson. And that's how you know the silence worked. It didn't end in resentment, it ended in respect. The chapter closed quietly, exactly as it should have. For you, this peace becomes contagious. People sense it before you speak. There's a patience in your movements, a steadiness in your eyes, a presence that makes chaos lose confidence around you. You're no longer moved by impulse, you're guided by purpose. And that calm draws people in. Not the way charisma does, but the way gravity does. It anchors them. You've become what silence taught you to be, an unshakable man. You don't demand attention. You attract it by existing in your truth. You don't need to argue to be understood. You live in a way that makes misunderstanding irrelevant. That's what mastery looks like. Not control over others, but control over self. Silence has completed its transformation. It has turned your restraint into resonance. There will be nights when the quiet feels so vast it almost speaks. You'll sit alone, maybe with a cup of tea, maybe under a fading sky, and you'll realize something profound. The silence that once scared you has become your home. You no longer equate stillness with loneliness. You feel the peace in the pauses, the meaning in the absence. You finally understand that silence isn't empty. It's full of presence, of memory, of wisdom. It holds the echo of every truth that words once tried to explain. It holds her lesson, your growth, and the distance that healed both. It holds everything, and in that realization, you smile. Not because you've won, but because you've arrived. You've arrived at the kind of peace that doesn't need closure to feel complete. So when someone asks what happened between you two, you don't speak badly, you don't romanticize, you simply say, "We learned in silence what words couldn't teach." Because that's the truth, brother. Silence did what arguments never could. It revealed who was ready for peace and who was still addicted to noise. It showed you the difference between attachment and alignment. It taught her that not every reaction is a sign of love, and it taught you that not every silence is a loss. In the end, it turned pain into wisdom, confusion into clarity, and distance into discipline. That's the quiet miracle of it all. You didn't have to raise your voice to be heard. You just had to go still, long enough for truth to echo. And in that echo, you both found what you were really looking for: understanding. As you move forward, you start to notice how silence has woven itself into everything you do. It's there when you work, when you rest, when you decide. You don't rush anymore, because silence taught you that urgency is often the enemy of truth. You've learned to wait, to observe, to let people reveal themselves. You've become strategic with your attention. You no longer give it out freely, and that selectivity has changed your life in ways you never expected. You're more productive, more peaceful, more powerful, not because of what you do, but because of what you no longer waste energy on. Silence didn't just change how you communicate, it changed how you exist. It taught you that mastery begins the moment you stop trying to be understood by those committed to misunderstand you. When she crosses your mind now, it's no longer with bitterness or longing, it's with gratitude. Gratitude for what that silence forged inside you. Because if you're honest, you know you wouldn't have reached this version of yourself without that space. You had to lose the comfort of noise to find the strength in quiet. You had to lose the habit of explaining to learn the art of trusting. You had to lose her presence to meet your own. That realization turns pain into appreciation. She became part of your becoming, and while she may never know it, her absence was the final push you needed to meet the man you were meant to be. That's the irony of growth. It rarely comes wrapped in comfort, but it always leaves behind clarity. She too will eventually feel thankful, though she'll never say it out loud. She'll see the ways your silence matured her, the way it forced her to slow down and listen, the way it taught her that peace isn't something someone gives you, it's something you cultivate. She might not credit you for that growth, but she'll know deep down that the lesson came from you. Every time she catches herself reacting more calmly, listening more patiently, she'll feel the faint echo of your restraint. That's the legacy silence leaves behind. It doesn't demand recognition, it simply transforms. It turns moments of ego into mirrors of awareness, and in that mirror, she'll see what love truly was. Not words, not promises, but the kind of presence that never needed to shout to be remembered. You'll start applying that same wisdom to every aspect of your life. In work, you'll listen longer before you speak, understanding that observation always precedes precision. In friendship, you'll surround yourself with those who understand your quiet, who know that your silence means comfort, not distance. In love, you'll seek connection that breathes, not one that screams. You'll realize that the kind of woman who deserves your energy will find peace in your pauses, not panic. She won't fear the quiet, she'll find safety in it, because she'll recognize that stillness as strength, not withdrawal. And that's how you'll know you've evolved. You no longer attract chaos, disguised as passion. You attract calm, disguised as depth. That's the kind of peace only silence could have prepared you for. Your silence begins to ripple outward, influencing others without effort. Friends start coming to you for advice, not because you talk the most, but because when you do, you say something real. Your presence becomes the steady pulse in a world of restless hearts. You no longer argue about trivial things, you conserve your energy for what matters. People start describing you as grounded, mature, mysterious, but it's not mystery, it's mastery. You've simply learned to hold what others spill. You've become a vessel for understanding rather than a stage for validation. And that quiet power doesn't just command respect, it restores balance wherever it goes. The same silence that once ended a relationship has now become your signature strength. One day, you'll cross paths with someone new, someone who isn't intimidated by your stillness. She'll sit beside you, not needing to fill the space with chatter. She'll understand that peace is a language, and she speaks it fluently. You'll feel a different kind of connection, one that isn't rushed or loud, but deeply alive. You'll realize that silence has prepared you for this kind of love, the kind that grows in the quiet, not the chaos. And when she looks at you, you'll see something familiar in her eyes, calm, not because she learned it from you, but because she found it in herself. That's when you'll understand that silence doesn't just end things, it refines you for what's next. She, on her side of the story, will continue to carry your stillness like a memory that refuses to fade. Even if she loves again, she'll compare that peace to yours, not intentionally, but instinctively. Because real presence leaves an imprint, not a scar. She'll remember how your silence never tried to manipulate, never tried to prove, never tried to punish, it simply was. And in her quiet moments, she'll wish more people understood that language. But you won't know this, and you won't need to, because silence, once mastered, no longer needs validation. Its impact exists, whether you see it or not. It echoes in hearts long after words are forgotten. For you, life continues to expand. The more silent you become, the clearer everything gets. You no longer rush to fill voids, you let them breathe until they become clarity. You understand now that everything unfolds perfectly when you stop forcing outcomes. The same silence that once separated you from her, now connects you more deeply to yourself. It keeps you humble, centered, untouchable by chaos. You realize that stillness isn't stagnation, it's preparation. It's where life gathers momentum before the next chapter begins. You've stopped fighting to be heard and started living to be understood by yourself. That's real alignment. That's real power. And that power moves quietly. Looking back, you can see the entire journey for what it was, a gradual unfolding of wisdom. What began as heartbreak became healing. What started as distance became discipline. What felt like loss became liberation. Silence was never a wall, it was a doorway. You walked through it and found yourself on the other side, standing in a space where peace wasn't earned, it was chosen. That's the beauty of it. You didn't become cold, you became composed. You didn't stop caring, you started caring correctly. And now, when you think of her, there's no resentment, no longing, no unfinished story, just quiet gratitude for the silence that made both of you grow. And so the story ends not with noise, but with peace. You've learned what few ever do, that silence speaks in frequencies words can't reach. It teaches through absence, heals through reflection, and builds through restraint. You no longer see it as the end of something, but as the beginning of everything real, because when a man learns to be silent, he becomes unshakable. He's no longer ruled by reaction, but guided by awareness. And in that awareness lies the ultimate truth. The love, the strength, the clarity you were searching for was never in her voice, it was in your quiet. That's what words could never say, brother. That's what silence always knew.